Hello, how's everybody doing? New location this week. Gotta be on the move in the bye week, so just walking around my neighborhood. Bye week, but for you guys, we'll talk some Tennessee Titans, some NFL. The deal, howling with the Wolfe. Any questions you guys have, and I'm sure you guys have plenty of thoughts after the Titans start. 4-3 start to the year, going into the bye week. Tie for the AFC South lead. But obviously it's not all positive. A lot of concerns coming out of that Cleveland Browns game. And, they're really at a point where we learn a lot about this Tennessee Titans team from how they're able to adjust and how they're able to come out of the bye. First, I'll kick it off with the offense. Because I know that's what you guys want to talk about. And from there, you guys fire questions around and we'll answer them. And I'll try to show you guys some of my neighborhood while we're walking across. But yeah, offense, not good. Not good. We're not going to sugarcoat it here. It's hard to, not score a touchdown against the Browns, but they did. They found a way to win, but it left a lot of concerns for me, particularly with the passing offense, because you come into a game where you would like to get an easy one. You would like to get an easy one at some point, and the Browns appeared to be one. They had two DBs down. Jason McCourty and Jabril Peppers didn't play, but the passing attack just was very stagnant. I think that's the best word to describe it. I wrote a couple articles about that particular one that came up yesterday about Corey Davis and the passing attack. I think, hey, Eddie, how you doing, man? And I'll answer your question immediately through this. I wrote in the story that I think that Corey Davis will make a big impact on the offense. And I think that he can potentially spark the offense to be where we thought it was going to be starting the year. And the reason why I think that is they brought him here to be a number one receiver, and he has that sort of talent. We saw that in his few days of training camp. We saw that in week one. But the big problem, I believe, and, some people have different perspectives, whether it's the play calling, the coaching staff, whether it's the running game. But I think a large portion of the Tennessee Titans' problems in the passing attack have come because their receivers can't get separation. They have a lot of possession receivers, Eric Decker, Rashard Matthews, even Delaney Walker is basically a possession receiver playing tight end. So you've got guys who are strong as far as route running. They're strong as far as the innuendos of playing receiver. But when you play man on guys, they're not going to be guys who get a lot of separation, burn guys deep outside of Taywan Taylor. So you're looking at a scheme where if you don't get in a situation where you can run the ball effectively early in the game, teams are going to say, hey, beat us with your arm, Marcus. And that's what they did against Cleveland. And guys aren't getting more than 1 or 2 yards of separation. So if Marcus has an off day, and I don't think he had a great game against Cleveland, you're looking at a situation where you're relying on him to throw a lot of precise passes, a lot of 50-50 balls. And if receivers aren't making plays on the ball like they weren't Sunday, then you have a situation where teams are going to load up the box and have success. And I know a lot of people have said that, hey, play calling should be able to switch it up and, open up with the pass and not be as predictable with the run. But the other side of that is if you can't pass the ball, you're going to have a lot of 3 and outs. And if you have a lot of 3 and outs, it's going to put a lot of pressure on your defense, a young defense that's getting better, but it's still a unit that has some issues, particularly in the back end, to hold up. And I know we talked about the 3 and outs early in the game, and that typically comes when you're trying to pass the ball and you're trying to get something flowing, but you're not able to do that. So I think there has to be a balance between establishing the bread and butter, which is the run game, and finding those receivers to make plays, getting the ball to their individual playmakers. So I think Corey Davis will make a big difference. I think once he comes, he'll create an element of the game where defenses have to game plan for him. They have seen tape on him from week one, and they've seen his ability to make plays when there isn't a play. He goes up there and makes grabs. He makes catches that aren't supposed to make. He bails out his quarterback. And that's something that a lot of the Titans receivers can't do on a regular basis. Rashard Matthews, he's a really good player, probably a really good number 2 receiver who makes a lot of plays, but there are no defenses that are going to be scared of Rashard Matthews. Defenses will be scared of Corey Davis, and maybe they don't creep that safety down in the box. Maybe they don't have that linebacker bringing that linebacker blitz every play to stop the run, and that opens up lanes for Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray to start running. So I think it'll help. I think also, this bye week they'll use to self-evaluate the coaching staff, Terry Rubisky, Mike Mularkey. All those guys will look at their plays and say, okay, what worked, what didn't? How can we adjust what we're trying to do? One of my suggestions is to kind of shift the way they look at the first 15 plays. A lot of it's establishing your bread and butter, but I think there can be a little bit fluidity on how they do that. Maybe there's a little bit more play action early in games when teams expect the run coming. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I'm, cautiously optimistic that this team can turn their offensive struggles around. They're, if you look at the numbers, they're a middle of the pack offensive team, middle of the pack defensive team, which isn't, bad for a team that's 4-3. They seem like they're, relatively average, but for the talent they have on this team to be the 26th ranked passing attack is disappointing in my opinion. So I think that's the big thing to get going, and then obviously getting more consistency in the running game. So let's see what you guys got. Maurice, they need to go 5 wide. Well, that means you're taking DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry out of the game plan. I mean, I think that's your bread and butter. There are situations where they can go 5 wide, and they can be effective in that, but I don't think they can make that a regular part of their offense, partially because they only have 5 receivers on the active roster, and I don't know if you want Eric Weems on the field on a regular basis. I do think that we'll see more 3 wide and maybe even some 4 wide, doubles formations as we come out of the bye. But I think, here's the thing. I know everybody wants this team to be different than who they are, but the core of their offense is always going to be that sort of exotic smash mouth term that, kind of followed Mike Mularkey here to Tennessee. So they're not going to completely abandon who they are and become a pass-first team, at least not this year. And I don't think you guys will want that. So let's see. We have a ton of 3-and-outs trying to run the ball too. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's no magic formula in the NFL, honestly. If you run the ball too much, people are going to say you need to open it up. If you pass the ball too much, people say, why are you getting away from who you are and your identity as a smash mouth team? There's always going to be critics on both sides of it, which is why, if you guys have stuck around with me for the last few weeks, I'm not a huge fan of using the excuse that the coaching staff or the play callers are the reason for all the blame. I mean, the players play the game. It's a players' game. The NFL is a players' league. Yes, the coaches call plays. Yes, the coaches create game plans. But a lot of times it's simpler than we make it. A lot of times it's, are you better than the man in front of you? Are you going to be able to run your play effectively? Are you able to win your assignment? And too often the Titans aren't winning their assignment. So yes, there have been some questionable play calling decisions. Yes, they could be better in that area. But I'm not about to just say, hey, the coaching is the only reason the offense is bad. That's a cop-out to me. That's excusing the players from what their assignments are. And that's just not the way I look at football. So, I mean, I know a lot of other people will do that, but I'm not solely blaming the coaching staff for where they are, because it's much deeper than that. Let's see. Do you think J-Rob will make any moves before the trade deadline? J-Rob's been a mover. I mean, he's been a mover and shaker. That's really his identity. You got to look, where can they make improvements? And I was looking at this earlier today. We did a thing for ESPN on trade options, particularly on your own team, and guys that could be moved from your own team to get a fresh start. And the name that I brought up was Kevin Dodd, for obvious reasons, a guy who's only been active once this season, a guy who was a 2016 second-round draft pick and hasn't really done much of anything. He could be a guy who I would think would make sense for a 4-3 team, add some weight, and play defensive line. I don't know if that'll happen. I haven't heard anything about that, but that's somebody who would make sense from that end of it. As far as the Titans bringing in somebody in, you got to look at where would they make improvements. I mean, 3 weeks ago, I would have said, a DB would really help this team. But they've started to settle down a little bit as far as the secondary. Adoree Jackson's played a lot better. Logan Ryan's played some great football. We saw the day that Kevin Byard had on the back end, and they're going to get Jonathan Cyprien back on the outside. So I don't know that there's, necessarily a huge need in that spot. You could always improve at corner. But I think I'm more apt to say they go ahead and sit at that area. Maybe they could bring something along in the front seven as far as another pass rusher or another run stopper on the D-line. But I don't know. I get the feeling that they may sit tight this deadline. I don't really know that there's a guy out there that could change the dynamics of this team much more than who they are. I think, the NFL trade deadline is rather boring for the most part. So I'd lean more towards no moves than a big splash move. More up-tempo. Yeah, we asked Malarkey about that, and I think we'll see more of that in the second half of the season. That is a part of their offense. But up-tempo is based on getting the flow of the offense going. And if you aren't able to run your assignments correctly, if you aren't able to successfully complete passes, successfully complete the running game the way that you want, then up-tempo is just going to make a lot of quick 3-and-outs like I mentioned. So I do think we'll see more up-tempo. I do think it helps with Marcus and the way whenever he gets his mobility back, I think it'll be the way they can do a lot of those RPOs, run-pass options, and the read option plays. If you can do up-tempo with that style offense and have his mobility, that can keep defenses off guard, particularly when you have playmakers like Corey Davis backing your offense. So, yes, I agree. More up-tempo, and I think we will see it. Let's see. What do you think the Titans can do to get a better pass rush going? I noticed it was better against Cleveland, but do you think it continue like that? Yeah, I talked briefly about the pass rush in a written mailback last week, and my take on the pass rush has been they have actually been pretty decent as a pass rush. It's been finishing that's been the issue. They're in the top 5 in the NFL, and they've been top 5 in the NFL in pressures. And I know that would surprise some folks because it seems like they can't get home, but really they can't finish. And honestly, it's hard to teach finishing. That's instincts. That's ability to finish plays. And they aren't able to get the sacks. The sacks are where they're struggling. So I don't know if they do anything different as far as pressuring. Maybe send some more blitzes, but it's going to be up to individuals. It's going to be up to Brian Arakpo, Derek Morgan, who actually had a really good game in Cleveland with 1.5 sacks. Guys who get to the quarterback have to finish. And, I know there were some excuses earlier this year, or I don't want to say excuses. The fact that they were playing mobile quarterbacks had an impact on that because guys can juke out of blitzes and make plays on the run. But having a sack really sets an offense back. So pressures are great. They affect the quarterback in their own way, but they've got to be able to close. I think that's the big issue with the pass rush. And that's not something that you can really game plan or do something different with. That's, like I mentioned, an individual assignment with guys slowing down a little bit, knowing their fundamentals, and just making a tackle. Any hope for Kevin Dodd? He's got to get on the field first. He's got to get on the field, whether that's special teams or defense. I think for me, it's a confidence, a mental issue. So it's going to be up to him and how quickly that comes around for him. And it may take an injury for him to get on the field because he's been inactive in all but one game this season. More pocket work and play action with Mariota. He thrived on Monday Night Football. We need more chunk plays early in the game. Yeah, I agree. I think play action is one of my big complaints as far as why don't we see it more. I asked the coaching staff this, and they said there has been some play action. There has, but when you go back and film, there's a lot more opportunities. Like, I know you guys talk about the predictability of play calling, and that's one area where I will note about the play calling is that there are scenarios at the game where I'm like, okay, this is going to be a run up the middle, when it would be a great play to bootleg Marcus out to the left and throw an easy pass to Delaney Walker for a first down. Those are things that I think they should be able to pick up throughout the bye week and say, okay, maybe we have a little bit less predictability, have a little bit more play action into the offense. Like you mentioned, he killed in play action on Monday Night Football. I put up a bunch of stats on Monday Night Football after his Monday Night Football game about how he played in the play action, and it was just phenomenal. And I think when you're able to get a steady run game going, when you're able to get to an area where your running backs aren't hit 3 yards in the backfield, then the play action really thrives because they actually buy the play action fake. So I'm a big proponent of play action with Marcus. Pocket work, that's going to be dependent on Marcus being healthy. That's why we haven't seen that the last 2 weeks. His hamstring is still bothering him, so they're not going to want him moving all through the pocket. But in the bye week, we should see more pocket work as well. Josh, what's up, man? Has the team addressed issues with Walden? He has terrible penalties every game. Yeah, penalties have been discussed, and Walden's a really aggressive player. But the thing is, you guys talked about pass rush. And if you take away his aggressiveness, then you're not going to have any pass rush. So some guys, you may have to talk to them about discipline. But he's been in the league for, 7-8 years? He is who he is. So you kind of accept that if he's on the field, he's going to be aggressive. And you might have some penalties every once in a while. So, yeah, it's been discussed. But I think if you want pass rush, you got to live with him. You hope Kevin Dodd could be that third outside linebacker, but he's clearly not that. So you've got Eric Walden in that spot. No one would trade for Dodd. I agree that he would be a buy low guy. So I mean, I don't think that he'll be traded, but he would be the guy that would make sense for me to be traded if there was one. Let's see. RPO, yeah, I know. I've been calling for it. I saw Carson Wentz kill on it the other night, and I'm just like, man, if you guys watched that Sunday Night Football game, I just thought Marcus could do a lot of the things that Carson can do as far as the way they use him. But the thing with Marcus versus Carson is that Carson's a lot bigger guy, so he is able to extend plays in ways that Marcus can't, and it just is what it is. But different schemes. I would love to see more RPO from the Titans. But like I said, those guys are smarter than me, so I don't want to get too much into play calling as far as what they should and shouldn't do. Let's see. The red zone. Yeah, red zone numbers are huge. I was looking at that the other day. They were 72% last season in the red zone, and they're about 44% this season. And I mean, honestly, you'll have some regression to the mean on play action, because 72% touchdown percentage in the red zone is a ridiculous number. Like that doesn't regularly happen, and it was unrealistic to expect them to have that type of performance again this season. But they've got to be better than 44%. Some of it will improve when Marcus's mobility returns, but a lot of it's just, sometimes they're too cute down there. Sometimes it's being too cute, but I will admit that 1st and goal situation was just guys getting beat up front. That wasn't a play calling failure. That was, if you've got 4 chances for the 1, 3 of them are weren't calls. And you can't get in. That's on the offensive line. That's on the running backs. And on the play to Delaney Walker on that, I think that was 2nd down. That was just Marcus just missing. That was a touchdown, and he just missed that pass. So that's a situation where the players aren't executing, which is why I say a lot of this is on the players, because I thought that was a really good play calling drive. I liked every play in that drive, including the 4th down attempt to go forward and hand it off to Derrick Henry, and they just couldn't execute. So that's on players. I don't really have an immediate solution for the red zone, but I do agree they need to get that going. Do you think Austin Davis eventually gets the majority of snaps over Daquan by the end of the year? I actually think Daquan Jones is playing pretty well. Austin Johnson, we saw him play at nose tackle, and I think he'll continue to get reps, but I think Daquan's actually playing pretty well. Let me see. Frankie, I think you can rewind at least once it's over to see what you missed. I know we talked about a bunch of stuff, but go ahead, feel free to rewind. Ask any questions. If I missed any of your questions, feel free to run through it I said, I'm just kind of walking through my neighborhood. I'm in 5 Points. Just doing a little cruising on this bye week. Getting my oil changed. Just kind of running out some errands. Getting some R&R. Hope all y'all are well. We'll fly through a few more of these questions. Then I'm going to go and let y'all enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Let's see what we got. Maurice, what's up with the shovel passes? Yeah, I think we talked about that to Malarkey, and he mentioned that some of them work, some of them don't, like all coaches do. I didn't really like that shovel pass, particularly when the offense was flowing to Henry. If you're going to do a shovel pass, I think your guy's DeMarco Murray because he's quicker. Derrick Henry, I know a lot of people, hold on one second. I know a lot of people want Derrick Henry to be the guy no matter what, but the thing about Derrick that's a weakness for him is that he needs room and he needs to get going. Like, he's not able to just go and move throughout without any pickup. So when you throw a toss to him, you have to account that he's going to take some time to get going. He's not going to be immediately cut it off, which is why we see a lot of negative plays for Derrick, which is why we see a lot of 3 or 4 yard losses, because if he doesn't get going downhill, which is his best skill set to get around the corner or to get downhill and run somebody over, if he doesn't get going, then that play is going to be a negative no matter what. Whereas DeMarco, he can often make 2, 3, 4 yards out of nothing. So my problem with the toss play in that situation was the timing of it, and that it was Derrick Henry instead of DeMarco. But I've seen the toss plays work as well, so I don't think it should be eliminated from the offense. Let's see. How's Walker doing? He's got a bone bruise in his ankle, which seems to be a positive. It looked bad when it happened, but it looks like he's going to be okay. I think there's a decent chance he plays after the bye against Baltimore, but I think we'll see next Monday when he comes back and see how far along he is. It seems to be a pain tolerance issue. Arakpo, I don't think anything's wrong with Arakpo, unless I missed something. Excuse me. Frankie, why aren't they running easy passing concepts like slants and plays to the flat? Using Mariota's accuracy, I can see a style of Brady ball. See if we're sluggish. All right. Yeah, I mean, my issue with slants kind of was the start of my this whole video chat. And if you missed it, you can rewind it. Separation. You can't run slants if your receivers can't get off the ball. And I don't want to pick on him, but Eric Decker, I showed some numbers earlier on the story I wrote yesterday, and Eric Decker ranks 119th out of 127 receivers with at least 18 targets in separation. That basically means that he's not getting separation from his corner. And if you're not getting separation on your corner, then you're covered. And Marcus is going to see that. So you're not going to force those things in there, because that's how turnovers happen. Turnovers and incompletions. So to successfully have a slant, you're going to have to get successful separation. So maybe when Corey Davis is back in there, you get more of that in your offense. Maybe I think a lot of that's on the receivers. A lot of that is Marcus hasn't been consistently accurate. You know, he had a really good game on Monday Night Football. And then he had an off game against Cleveland. So let's be honest. I mean, if we're talking about criticism across the board as far as the coaching staff, as far as the receivers, running back, offensive line, we got to get some criticism to Marcus when he doesn't play great. And he didn't play great on Cleveland in the Cleveland game, and that kind of hurt him. They left some touchdowns on the board because Marcus missed some passes, and that happens. Sometimes quarterbacks have off days. Sometimes they miss passes, and that was the case against Cleveland. And it probably cost him 2 touchdowns. Let's see. Okay, yeah. I see touchdown percentage. We talked about that. Tight end, they were weak at DB. Talked about. Okay, yeah. We'll chat about that briefly again. And like I said, I'll go ahead and close it after this. But yeah, I think a lot of people's issues, and I have sort of that issue as well, is that we knew coming into the game the Browns were weak against the pass and they were strong against the run. So in that consideration, you could say, why wasn't the game planning more on passing the ball? And I could definitely agree with that if Marcus didn't throw 34 passes. So I think they did throw the ball quite a bit, and they only threw 13 of their 34 passes went to receivers. So that meant 21 of their other 34 passes went to tight ends and running backs. Delaney Walker led the team with 10 targets. So that kind of goes to your question on the Browns being poor against the tight end. Well, they targeted the tight end, their top tight end, Delaney Walker, 10 times. And he led the team in reception. So I think that they did what they were supposed to do as far as game plan. Execution wasn't really good. They tried to stick with the run because it was a close game, and I'm a big proponent of sticking with the run because the big plays can happen on the ground, and that's their bread and butter. So I didn't see a huge issue, honestly, with the play calling against Cleveland. Maybe that's just me, but I didn't see a huge gap as far as balance that we always talk about, the run-pass balance, when they're supposed to run, when they're supposed to pass. I have a few gripes here and there, different situations where I thought that this could have worked better. But that's personal preference. I didn't think a huge reason why they were in that tight game against Cleveland was coaching staff and play calling. I thought a lot of it was their team came out sluggish. They didn't look like they were on the same page offensively. Receivers didn't play well. Marcus didn't play well. The offense didn't run block well. The running backs didn't really play well. And I think that was really the reason why we saw a 12-9 game. They kept running into an 8-man front because they couldn't get separation on the outside and their receivers weren't open when they dropped back to pass. So I don't know. I think that there are a lot of issues with this team. Like I said, started from the jump, that they have to figure out. Coaching is a part of it. Play calling is a part of it, but it's not the main cause of it, and it's not the only cause of it. They got to play better. And a lot of that, I don't want to use the excuse they were playing on a short week, but it looked like a team that kind of tried to cruise through the game. And I think that was our fear going into it. They're playing Cleveland. This is a winless team. We just got off a big win against Monday Night Football, and they looked like they just tried to get through it. And that's how they played. So, like I mentioned, I'm cautiously optimistic that they'll get better. We've seen this team play really well in spurts offensively. So I know they had the potential to do it. We raved about the play calling in the Seattle game. We raved about how they played against Indianapolis with Marcus being limited. So it can happen. It's just about a consistency. They are consistently inconsistent. That's really been the motto of the first 7 games of the season. So I would really like to see them figure out a way to put 3 or 4 really good games together, really good complete games together, and then we can truly look at this team as a potential division winner like we thought at the start of the year. So yeah, we're going to wrap it up. Let me see. I'll answer Chris's questions real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. Thank you guys again for joining. This was fun. Again, we're trying to cruise around, heading back closer to my apartment. But let's see. Favorite play from the game, and what do you expect to see against the Ravens? My favorite play against the game from the Titans' perspective, I didn't really have a lot of favorite plays because they didn't really do a ton well. I guess my favorite play is anytime they get the ball to Taywan Taylor, because I think that he's their best explosive playmaker. So I'd probably say the long pass to Taywan Taylor, I think it was not a long pass, but a 23-yarder to Taywan Taylor. I think that was a really strong play, and I would love to see more of Taywan Taylor in the offense. Against the Ravens, I think that we'll see, like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic that they'll be better. So I think that we'll see a strong performance from the Titans against the Ravens. The Ravens have a really weak run defense. So I think all the folks that are talking about the pass offense exploding, I don't know that that's necessarily the week for it. I think this is a week that you game plan to get DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry going. I think if I look at the stats correctly, the Ravens rank last in the NFL in run defense. So you've got your run offense, Derrick Henry, DeMarco Murray, the offensive line that you claim is one of the best in the league. Go ahead and pound that team and get a victory, and I think they should. Yep, that's it, man. We'll see you guys next week. I may kind of scroll and see if there's anything worth a written mailbag from these questions. And as always, send your feedback. See you guys. Bye.